Hi, I'm Alisa. Today I will be discussing how globalization has impacts on emerging markets with a particular focus on India. We will explore the benefits, challenges, and strategic shifts driven by globalization and foreign investments. Country economics were interlinked due to global trade, capital flows, technological advancements, and market liberalization. By decreasing tariffs, quotas, and regulatory restrictions, goods, services, capital, and technology could traverse borders. Globalization had changed the economic and corporate environment of developing countries, allowing growth and participation in the global economy, according to the OECD. Globalization was caused by trade liberalization, which increased export import activities and market access, technological advancements, especially in communication and transport, which lowered transaction cost and speed of information exchange and capital flows, where foreign direct investments and portfolio investments made emerging nations more competitive in global value chain and attractive to international investors seeking development. Due to global market, emerging economies grew quickly, allowing local enterprises to expand their customer bases abroad. Through technology transfer from multinational corporations, India's globalization enhanced productivity, FDI, and trade openness. Emerging nations enhanced market liquidity, technologies, and socio-economic development by improving economic fundamentals and international trade and investment flows. India's entry into the global marketplace demonstrated that globalization had improved developing countries' growth trajectory and strategic position in the global economy. Moving to the next slide, let's discuss how India as an emerging market is benefiting from globalization. By integrating with international markets and creating trade policies, India became a significant participant in the global economic landscape and boosted its import export activities and global competitiveness. India, renowned for its protectionist trade stance, started liberalization in the early 1990s, allowing global trade flows. These reforms removed several trade barriers, enabling India to join global value chains that underpinned contemporary international trade, according to the OECD. Strategically seeking free trade agreements enlarged the country's trade footprint. Agreements with the European Free Trade Association, United Arab Emirates, and Australia improved market access for Indian exporters, diversified export destinations, and encouraged capital goods and technology inputs for industrial growth. The manufacturing sector, which had been underdeveloped compared to other emerging economies, recovered due to the Make in India initiatives. These objectives sought to boost India's global manufacturing output from 3% to 5% by 2030 and 10% by 2047. This industrialization plan mattered India's services sector, particularly information technology and business processes outsourcing, built its export economy on its vast, clever, and English speaking labor force, generating employment and foreign exchange earnings. India's export and import volumes, industrial capabilities, integration with the global economy, and status as a manufacturing and services hub increased due to globalization. Talking about foreign direct investments, India's economic development strategy rely on foreign direct investments and liberalizing reforms and regulatory environment to attract global capital. The World Bank states that reforms in foreign ownerships, limitations, and bureaucratic procedures attracted foreign investors, boosting capital inflows for infrastructure development, technology acquisition, and industrial growth. Liberalization policies enable local enterprises to obtain cutting edge technologies, management expertise, and global best practices from foreign investment in technology, infrastructures, and manufacturing sectors. India's technology sector attracted FDI, drawing multinational companies with its fast growing domestic market and huge talent pool. This produced global IT services firms and a thriving startup ecosystem. Foreign funding sponsored infrastructure investment, including transport networks, energy production, and in urban development projects. This capital provided financing and advanced engineering and project management skills for large scale expansion. Investments in the manufacturing sector increased production capacity, and linked Indian companies to international supply chains, encouraging economic diversification and job creation. Government initiatives like Make in India added these efforts. Foreign investments boosted India's productive capabilities and economic growth. Globalization increased capital mobility and domestic modernization and competitiveness. Globalization changed India's technology sector and outsourcing. Digital infrastructure development and technology startups boosted India's technological significance. Global markets made India a top destination for outsourcing, especially software development, customer service, and knowledge based services, according to the OECD. In addition to foreign exchange earnings, this outsourcing boomed enhanced national technology capabilities and service quality. India's digital transformation went beyond outsourcing. Over a billion individuals acquired digital identities via the Aadhaar biometric identification system, enabling financial inclusion, digital payments, and government services. By increasing semiconductors and electronic components production, Make in India minimized imports and boosted innovation. India's startup ecosystem needed global capital and technological exchange. Companies like Flipkart, Paytm, and Ola in e-commerce payments and transport transformed India and beyond. Globalization allowed technology transfer and an indigenous digital revolution, making India an innovation hub in emerging markets through outsourcing, government driven digital infrastructure upgrades, and entrepreneurial dynamism. Now let's have a look on the challenges. This cyclical global economy could endanger developing countries' growth trajectories and economic stability owing to major economic powers, trade tensions, and financial market volatility. The OECD noted that emerging economies confronted global demand and external shocks. Inflation, exports, supply chains, and capital flows, notably foreign direct investments portfolio inflows, which promoted development, showed this fragility. Financial markets were linked to economic cycles. Fast capital transfers could generate currency depreciation, inflationary pressures, and credit conditions, creating macroeconomic management challenges. The foreign capital needed for inflation and industrial expansion made emerging markets vulnerable to sudden halts and reversal caused by changes in investors' sentiment or tightening global financial conditions, which were often influenced by advanced economics like the United States or Eurozone. Trade tensions, tariff sanctions, or geopolitical conflicts could hurt poorer governments that sold to richer markets or were in global value chains. External issues risk economic instability and structural weakness, impeding competitive growth in a chaotic global economic environment. This volatility implied that developing countries needed to diversify trade partners and capital sources, establish economic frameworks to survive external shocks, and grow. In addition to global economic shifts, growing nations face complicated structural and domestic challenges that could hinder investment and competitiveness. Permanent infrastructure deficits, reduced productivity, increased operational costs, and hindered connectivity across borders. Thus, global integration and market participation were restricted. Energy supplies, digital connection, urban growth, and transport networks required capital investment and policy efforts. Companies faced uncertainty and delays due to bureaucratic hurdles such as complex regulatory environments, lengthy approval processes, and inconsistent enforcement. The OECD found these investment and innovation restrictions in emerging countries noteworthy. Human capital and domestic consumption were limited by social inequality in income, education, and healthcare, which hindered inclusive economic growth. Economic disparity could produce political discontent affecting reform agendas and governance. Political uncertainty from coalition governments, electoral cycles, or policy shifts could impair investor confidence and competitiveness. In regulatory unpredictability, exploration, and frequent regulatory changes made growing markets riskier, especially inconsistent policy implementation. Structural and domestic challenges require institutional reforms, investments in human and physical capital, and government's improvements to benefit from globalization and long term economic resilience. Competition from other emerging markets and developing countries, a globalized economic system where capital, technology, talent were immovable and contestable helped rising nations struggle for investment, trade, and industrial capacity. The OECD proposed competitive fiscal incentives, ease of doing business, social legal protections, better infrastructures, and human capital to attract foreign direct investment in crowded developing country markets. For higher value goods and services, the value chain needed innovation, technological adoption, and industrial capabilities. No longer were cost factors or market size adequate competition. In a globalized economy, China and South Korea showed how innovation, sophisticated manufacturing bases, and varied service sector fuel development. Emerging markets had to compete with developed economies, technological and economic expertise, which dominated major sectors, global standards, supply chains, and trade regulation. Strategic investments in education, digital infrastructure, research and development, entrepreneurship, international collaboration were needed to acquire durable competitive advantages in this complicated competitive environment. Low productivity growing countries could fall into the middle income trap without adaptability. When wage growth exceeded productivity gains, export competitiveness and economic advancement suffered. To compete in the global economy, developing nations had to innovate and enhance industrial and technological capacity over time. In conclusion, international commerce, foreign investment, technology transfer boost economic development, integration, and opportunity for developing economies as India evolved to be competitive and inclusive. Emerging nation needs strong policies, infrastructure development, and continual innovation owing to external shocks, structural inefficiencies, and tough competition. Globalization would affect developing nations. India demonstrated that navigating these difficulties could maximize its potential, assuring long term economic resilience and development in the increasingly integrated global economy. Thank you.